Madness in Tehran. Suicide drones were launched by surprise at the Revolutionary Guard's targets. A swarm of Israeli AI-guided drones carried out suicide strikes on manned Basij checkpoints in Iran, eliminating them in a coordinated operation. We will soon bring you all the details on the latest reports coming out of Tehran as the Mossad involvement. What do you think about that? After Israel neutralized most of Iran's missile capabilities, the Israeli Air Force is moving on to a hunt against Iran's drone array. America's doomsday weapon, the B-52, is joining the campaign. Welcome. And after the night of fire, the United States made it clear to Israel, we are not stopping. Iran has begun laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. The Revolutionary Guards are threatening the United States. We have a unique weapon that we have not yet used. Chaos is raging inside Iran's military. The Revolutionary Guards are on edge. The Iranian Air Forces has been destroyed. Plane after plane, the entire Iranian Air Force was destroyed by the United States military and by the IDF. Israel revealed Iran had planned hundreds of missile launches every single day, and then the Israeli Air Force changed the equation. The situation in the Iranian military is catastrophic. Only 10 bullets have been allocated to each Iranian soldier, an unprecedented supply crisis in Iran's army. The global oil crisis is deepening. Trump is releasing reserves, and Oman is taking a dramatic step in an attempt to contain the rising oil prices. The tech giants are in the crosshairs. Iran is threatening Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. The Gulf states are under the Iranian attack. A drone struck a residential tower in Dubai. A dramatic night in Iraq. Iran attacked the oil facilities, and the global oil price reached and reacted immediately. So the massive destruction in the Dakhia neighborhood in Lebanon has been exposed, and we will bring you what remains after the Air Force struck overnight against the Hezbollah positions in Beirut, Lebanon. And today, we will give you a glimpse into the luxury real estate empire and investments of Iran's new leader. I'm Yair Pinto, with me is Mati Shoshani, and we are the boots on the ground that bring you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel, and also everything that's happening around the Middle East. Day 13th of the war is coming to an end, so let us begin with a summary of the strikes. Israel once again is carrying out a crazy operation that is impossible to grasp, the operation that stunned Iran. The Mossad is behind this. And the latest Israeli operation against the Revolutionary Guards is driving supporters of the Iranian regime crazy, and they are convinced that the Israeli spy agency, the Mossad, is behind all of this. I can tell you, it looks like it came out of a science fiction movie. This report came in today. In Tehran, they are accusing the Mossad of maneuvering that took place inside Iran and looked like it came straight out of a science fiction movie. An attack by AI-guided drones, which I think I will start calling a super drone swarm made in Israel and was documented in Tehran, while dozens of Basij men were eliminated within minutes, and again, in a way that everyone will understand. The Basij apparatus deployed checkpoints on central streets in order to block the civilian movement, and in a news agency identified with the regime, it was written that Israeli drones attacked checkpoints. The goal? To create a sense of persecution. In Iran, they claimed this is a joint work by the Mossad and monarchist elements. According to Fars news agency, which is identified with the regime, Basij personnel were terminated at the checkpoints in Tehran. This is a joint work by the Mossad and the monarchist elements to infiltrate terrorists, and this operation will fail. This is according to what they claim in Iran. We will soon bring you all the details on this crazy, unbelievable operation. And in addition to that, today, 60 Iranian ships were sunk in the last 24 hours. The United States announced we destroyed 5,500 targets in the Iranian territory. The IDF struck regime infrastructures and eliminated the Revolutionary Guard soldiers at the headquarters. Fighters from Iran's drone array were eliminated by the Air Force just moments before the launch. At the same time, launchers were destroyed and terrorists were eliminated in several waves of strikes in Dakhia and Tyre. Today, we will bring you everything that happened minute by minute. The Israeli Air Force continues to deepen the damage to the fire arrays of the Iranian terror regime. More than 250 unmanned aerial vehicles, launchers, and dozens of launch sites were attacked. The IDF bombed the sensitive site in Iran. New bomb damage was seen. 3 large holes in the concrete roof at Talikan No. 2. The site in the Parkhin complex where the Iranians in the past tried to test explosives for the military component of a nuclear bomb, and this site was attacked by the Air Force in October of 2024. In satellite images since then, attempts to rehabilitate it were documented, including fortifications. In new footage after its bombings by the IDF, 3 holes can be seen indicating the strike. It appears that bunker-busting bombs were used. The Air Force noted that they succeeded in damaging Iran's command and control array, and because of that, they were unable to meet their missile launch goals against Israel or maintain consistency in those launches. There are areas in Iran that have stopped functioning and stopped launching. In 12 days of fighting, Iran launched at Israel only half the number of missiles that it fired in Operation the first round of attacks between Israel and Iran, and also the second one. So the defense establishment is identifying a drop in motivation amongst many command levels and a lack of coordination with the operational ranks. The number of Air Force strikes has surged significantly compared to the previous operation. In Israel as well, we went through a restless night. A coordinated attack by Iran and Hezbollah under northern Israel led to 3 hours of sirens and non-stop fire in northern Israel. The IDF issued a sharp warning to the Lebanese government: restrain Hezbollah or we will attack civilian infrastructure as well. Iran has scattered thousands of mines in eastern Hormuz. The reports of the mining of the Strait of Hormuz are rising the level of the tension. The strategic move by the regime in Tehran threatens to disrupt oil trade routes and trigger a global energy crisis. The crisis in the Strait of Hormuz is worsening after official figures from a series of influential countries, including Turkey, Egypt, India, and Pakistan, appealed to Tehran in the last 24 hours with an urgent demand to stop the attacks in the strategic shipping route. Iran, for its part, responded with a sharp answer that left no room for doubt. Security will be for everyone, or it will be for no one. Iran is threatening to shut down oil exports through the Strait of Hormuz and has already begun laying naval mines in that location, just as it did in the war against Iraq in the 1980s. In the Foreign Affairs and Defensive Committee, the IDF confirmed that mines indeed have been laid. It will take weeks to clear them up. And Trump ordered the release of 172 million barrels of oil from the strategic reserves following the spike in the prices against the background of the Iranian threat in the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, Oman evacuated tankers from a central port of fear of escalation. And in addition, the conflict in the Middle East is moving from the physical field into the digital sphere, as Iran marks the American tech giants as legitimate strategic targets. On top of all of that, all these threats, Iran is threatening Trump. We will not allow you to end this war. And against the backdrop of revenge threats from Trump fired back. Iran is being completely destroyed. Reports from Iran indicate shortages of ammunition, food, and water amongst units at the front and rise in the soldier desertions, meaning soldiers do not want to fight anymore, do not follow orders, and just leave their posts. And at the same time, growing tension is being recorded between the regular army and the Revolutionary Guards along with difficulties in mobilizing the reserve forces. And on top of all of this, the bank responsible for salaries was hit in the strike. The information center is the data center. The data center of Iran's major bank, Sefach, which is responsible for salaries for Iran's military personnel and the Revolutionary Guards. This bank was hit. This is information that is going to affect this regime because this will prevent them from paying the salaries for a period of time now, and they will have to find some other solutions. And Israel continues to strike the Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon. Iran's senior commander and his deputy, who operated in the missile unit, were eliminated inside Lebanon by the IDF. Abu Dahar Muhammadi, a commander on behalf of the Revolutionary Guards who operated in Hezbollah's missile unit, was also taken out. And a little gossip, Mujtaba Khamenei, the son of Iran's eliminated supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was chosen at the beginning of the week to inherit his father, even though he never held an official position in the regime. For 2 decades, he ran his father's office in parallel and also built a huge real estate empire, from Hilton hotels in Germany to holdings in Dubai, London, and Paris, all alongside a line of investments ranging from shipping companies in the Persian Gulf to bank accounts in Switzerland. We will soon bring you all the details about this evil man. But while the supreme leader lived a life of wealth, millions of displaced people are wandering inside Iran. The United Nations reports that since the beginning of the war in Iran, more than 3 million Iranians have been displaced from their homes and are now just wandering across Iran. Will the Houthis in Yemen, remember them? The Houthis in Yemen, will they join this war? What do you think? At this stage, the Houthis in Yemen are providing only indirect support to Iran. However, as the regime's condition deteriorates, the likelihood grows that they will carry out attacks against the United States and against Israel. The FBI fears that Tehran is planning a drone attack from civilian vessels at sea against targets in California. And despite the lack of concrete information about the timing of the attack, the alert level in Los Angeles has been raised to a maximum ahead of the Oscars ceremony to be held on Sunday. The tension in the Middle East is rising minute by minute. So let us dive into all of these details. I'm Yair Pinto, with me is Mati Shoshani, and we are the boots on the ground that bring you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel. And this is day 13th of the war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. And a second before we begin, I want to call on you to keep spreading the truth, share our content with as many people as possible, click on the subscribe button, and most importantly, do not forget to look for me, Yair Pinto, and for Mati Shoshani on social media platforms so that you will get the behind-the-scenes look of what's happening in Israel, especially now during this war. Now let us return to the news. Drones exploded over Tehran overnight, and they struck the Basij checkpoints and left behind a line of unalived in the heart of the Iranian capital, especially from the Iranian regime Basij forces. At the same time, the Air Force continued attacking headquarters, command centers, missile production and storage sites, and also drone arrays, while in northern Israel, sirens continued after a coordinated attack by Iran and Hezbollah. The question now is very sharp. Does the 13th day of the epic Fury War, or by its Israeli name, Lion's Roar, mark just another day of attrition, or the moment when the Iranian regime begins to lose both the ability of control from within and the ability to threaten from without? It begins with an event that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. In Tehran itself, there were reports of an unusual drone attack against the Basij checkpoints. In Iran, they immediately blamed the Mossad and the monarchist opposition elements. The Fars news agency admitted to at least 10 dead, but in reports coming out of Iran, the numbers jumped much higher, with claims of dozens and even more than that, hundreds of casualties amongst the Basij personnel. It must be said honestly, the exact number is not closed, but the event itself is very clear. The checkpoints were attacked, the men of the repression apparatus were hit, And in Tehran, they understand that someone has the ability to strike not only bases, not only headquarters, but the regime's own people, while they are standing in the streets. The significance of this is enormous. The Basij were deployed in Tehran to control the movement, to prevent the civilian organization, and to block the possibility that an internal protest movement would develop during the war. When those checkpoints are attacked, the message is twofold. On the one hand, to the Iranian public, the regime does not fully control the streets. On the other hand, to the Basij personnel themselves, you are exposed. This also explains the waves of reports coming out of Iran about urban control in the skies over Tehran and a sense of persecution amongst the regime personnel. Those that used to persecute the Iranian people are now being persecuted by the IDF drones. And in the Iranian opposition, they connected this to Reza Pahlavi's call for his supporters to stay home, strike, and wait for the right moment. In Jerusalem and Tehran, they understand the meaning very well. If the forces of repression stop feeling safe, the regime loses the first layer that protects it from within. And at the same time as this drone attack is taking place, the Air Force continued doing what it has been doing for days now, but on a broader level. Fighter jets attacked in the heart of Tehran soldiers who were operating in a Revolutionary Guards headquarters, eliminated them within seconds, and struck the series of additional regime infrastructures. Amongst the targets that were attacked were headquarters and command centers of the Air Force in the Revolutionary Guards, the complex built inside the Imam, the military university, ballistic missile storage and production sites, facilities used to launch missiles intended to hit Israeli aircrafts, headquarters and bases of the internal security forces, and the Basij, and also an intelligence headquarters of the ministry. In southwestern Iran, there were also reports of an attack on dozens of police headquarters in Ahvaz. In other words, this is not just a hunt for launchers. This is an attack on the nerves of the regime. And here it is necessary to understand the operational change of the 13th day. After the severe blow to the missile array, Israel moved with force to hunt the Iranian drone array. Until now, more than 250 unmanned aircrafts and launchers and dozens of launch sites have been attacked. In several cases, Iranian soldiers were identified while they were arming the drones for immediate launch towards Israel, and they were eliminated with the launchers in a rapid closure of the circle. This is a very important detail because it explains why the scale of the fire from Iran is much smaller than what they had planned. In the security establishment, they say that the regime planned hundreds of missiles and launches every single day, as well as swarms of drones. In practice, in 12 days of fighting Iran, they launched only 250 missiles. This is less than half of what was fired in the previous operation between Israel and Iran. It is no longer managing to launch more than a few isolated missiles at a time, and certainly not barrages of 30 to 40 missiles in each wave, as it had planned. And in the Air Force, they attribute to this damage the command and control. There are areas in Iran that have simply stopped functioning. There are commands that are operating only on the basis of local motivation. And there are places where there is no longer coordination between the commanding echelon and the operational echelon. That is why Israel is not only destroying the launchers, it is breaking the ability of the Iranian system to function as a system. The scope of the air operation illustrates all of this. So far, 4,000 sorties have been carried out in Iran and more than 10,000 munitions have been dropped. In Lebanon alone, around 1,000 munitions have been dropped. In order to manage those two arenas, the Air Force even split the campaign into two separate command theaters, one for Iran and one for Lebanon, with two brigadier generals managing each one separately. That sounds technical, but that is exactly what makes it possible to sustain a continuous sequence of strikes in Tehran, in western Iran, in the Dakheh neighborhood, in Tyre, without losing pace, without wearing down the operational tension. And in the middle of all of this, the United States made clear today to Israel and to the world that it is not stopping. Trump said publicly that they are not leaving Iran until the job is finished. On the one hand, he continues to hint that the war could end quickly and that there is almost nothing left to attack. On the other hand, the operational message is clear. There will be no stop before the objectives are achieved. The Americans claim that they have already attacked 5,500 targets on the Iranian territory and also sunk 60 Iranian ships. U.S. Central Command also releases footage of strikes on transport aircrafts and additional aircrafts of the Iranian Air Force. And the message that accompanied them was sharp. Iran is losing air capabilities day by day. This also connects to the new American story that is hanging over the arena. 3 B-52 bombers landed at Fairford. This is a base in Britain, against the background of the possibility that they may participate in the strikes later on. It is important to be precise. They enter the picture as a deterrent lever and as an operational option, not as a strike that has already been carried out. But their very deployment changes the language. The B-52 is a platform that can carry more than 30 tons of munitions, including heavy bunker-penetrating munitions and launch munitions to a range of around 2,500 kilometers. When that bomber is deployed to Europe while the war is ongoing, that is not decoration. It is a message to Iran that the next phase could be heavier. And before we continue forward, there is a short point all around here that is important to stop on. If you love TBN Israel and want to be part of what God is doing here in the land of Israel, we want to invite you to visit our official online store. Just go to shop.tbnisrael.com. Again, that's shop.tbnisrael.com. There, you can find TBN Israel merchandise that helps you stay connected to what's happening here on the ground and be part of sharing the message that's coming out of Israel. And right now, we also have the Boots on the Ground complete set available. So if you like to get the whole bundle, you can save $9 by using the code BOTG set. Boots on the Ground set. Okay, BOTG set at the checkout, which brings the price down to $99. When you purchase from the store, you're also helping us create more work, more videos, more updates from the ground here in Israel. We report, we teach, and we share what's happening here from a biblical perspective. So, if you're looking for something meaningful or just a simple way to stand with Israel, we invite you to check it out. Go to shop.tbnisrael.com. Again, that's shop.tbnisrael.com, and thank you for standing with us. And now let's return to the picture on the ground. If there is one arena that explains why this war is not really close to ending, it is the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is not only threatening, it is acting. Naval mines have been laid, and confirmation of that has already been even in these close discussions in Israel. So the estimates range from a small number of mines that have already been laid right now to a potential stockpile of thousands of mines. The Iranian explanation is simple and also cruel. If Tehran is under fire, then the global economy will also be under fire. That is why the Iranians are setting a new equation. Security will be for everyone, or it will be for no one, according to the Iranians. The significance of mines in Hormuz is enormous. This is a bottleneck through which a fifth of the global oil support passes. Even a small number of mines is already enough to raise the insurance costs, stop the movements, scare away the tankers, and disrupt energy markets. And that is exactly the Iranian objective: to cause a spike in prices, pressure the Gulf states, India, Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt, to cause them to pressure Washington to stop the war. Iran has already rejected appeals from several states to restore freedom of navigation and made clear that the strait will remain locked without clear guarantees for the end of the war and the removal of the sanctions. The United States is responding here as well, with force and with economics. Trump threatened that the mines would be removed immediately, or Iran would suffer military consequences on a level not seen before. The Americans announced that they have already destroyed 16 boats intended to lay in mines, And at the same time, Trump ordered the release of 172 million barrels from the strategic reserves. Together with a broader move by the International Energy Agency to release 400 million barrels, this is supposed to be an economic counter-response to the Iranian threat. But in the meantime, the market is responding to pressure, not to calming messages. 3 additional ships were hit in the Persian Gulf. 2 tankers were attacked near Iraq. A container ship was hit near Jabal Ali. Oman evacuated vessels from the Maini al-Fahd terminal, and the port of Salah was also hit by drone attacks. The damage is not staying at sea. The Gulf states themselves are being hit. An Iranian drone struck a residential tower in Dubai and started a fire. In Bahrain, additional targets were hit. In Oman, fuel facilities and a port was hit. In Iraq, tankers were attacked, and the price of oil responded immediately. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, Jordan, and Iraq are already within the Iranian strike range. And Tehran's message is clear. If Washington and Jerusalem do not stop, the entire Gulf will become a front. But it is here that the Arab complexity is also exposed. On the one hand, there is quiet relief over Iran's weakening, and on the other hand, there is enormous fear of the new order that could emerge if Tehran breaks. The Gulf states are refusing at this stage to be dragged into a full-scale war, even as they are being hit on their own soil. They fear direct confrontation, but they also do not want to see an Iranian regime collapse and leave behind a chaotic vacuum. That is why they are speaking in 2 voices. Quiet security cooperation alongside public avoidance of escalation. From here, it is also necessary to return to Iranian military itself, because what is happening there internally is explaining much of its behavior externally. A series of reports point to shortages of ammunition, food, and water, severe tension between the regular army and the Revolutionary Guards, and also desertions, soldiers leaving their posts, not abiding orders. In one of these units, according to the reports, only 20 bullets were distributed for every 2 soldiers, not 1 even. It was also reported that the Revolutionary Guards personnel refused to assist in evacuating wounded soldiers of the regular army, despite having access to medical facilities. And at the same time, attempts to recruit reservists yielded very limited results, and some of those called to service used the situation to flee their families, together with their families, away from the army. These difficulties also are reaching the missile units themselves. There are communications failures, supply shortages, and a clear prioritization of spare parts for missile systems over the living conditions of the soldiers. Also, Bank Sefach, from which salaries are paid to the military personnel and the Revolutionary Guards personnel, had its data center hit. The significance of that may not look as dramatic as the strike on the headquarters, but in an army that is falling apart from within, a hit on the payment and the salary system is a force multiplier of chaos. On the ground, the Iranian public continues to move. More than 3.2 million Iranians have been displaced from their homes since the beginning of the war. Many of them are from Tehran and its surroundings. Some of them are civilians trying to flee the strikes. Some of them, according to the reports, are also regime personnel and armed forces fleeing out of fear of assassination. And at the same time, the continued absence of Mustafa Khamenei from the public eye adds another layer of humiliation and humiliation for this entire regime. In Iran, the king must be seen. When the new leader does not appear, and when the street is already laughing at him, that is not only an image problem, it is a blow to the legitimacy of his rule. In the Lebanese arena, the campaign continues to spread. The Air Force attacked in Dakhia and Tyre, and in the last 24 hours, the dimensions of the destruction in Hezbollah strongholds in Beirut have been exposed. Around 70 targets were attacked in the Beirut area. Of them, around 50 high-rise buildings used for terror purposes. Commanders were eliminated in Islamic Jihad, in Hezbollah, and also 5 central commanders in the Lebanon Corps and the Palestine Corps of the Quds forces. In addition, Abu Dahar Mohammadi was eliminated, a commander on behalf of the Revolutionary Guards who operated within Hezbollah's missiles unit. Coordinated military between Tehran and Beirut, and was a central knowledge of hub in the field of missile warfare. On the other side, Hezbollah expanded the fire. In the northern parts of Israel, there was a coordinated attack with Iran that lasted for hours with more than 200 rockets, missiles, and drones. Israel says that 2/3 of the attack was disrupted, and more than half of the launchers were destroyed during the first wave itself. But in the north, the anger is growing, and the message to Lebanon is hardened. If the state does not restrain Hezbollah, Israel will no longer be satisfied with tear targets alone. Behind the scenes, the diplomatic arena is no less stormy. Trump says, "We are not leaving until we finish the job," but also continues signaling that he can finish quickly if he wants to. His advisor says that Iran's activity in Hormuz only motivates him to continue. In Washington, they are talking about a quick ending, but in practice, they are preparing for more. Tehran, for its part, is threatening the United States of America with a unique weapon that it has not used yet. Also marking the digital space and threatening Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, IBM, Palantir, and Oracle. In other words, it is trying to move the campaign into the technological world, into the markets, and into the public consciousness. At the same time, in the United States, they are already examining direct threats to the continuum, to the continent itself. The FBI warned of possibility of Iranian drones that are being launched from vessels towards targets in California. That threat is still under investigation and has no clear operational timetable, but the very raising of the alertness and the fact that they are dealing with it shows how seriously Washington is taking the possibility that the war will expand beyond the Middle East. And in Yemen, the Houthis are still on the fence. Right now, they are providing only indirect support, but the more the situation of the Iranian regime worsens, the greater the possibility that they will join directly through fire into the Red Sea, or against Israel, or against military bases of the United States of America. That is one of the reasons that the aircraft carrier Gerald Ford is in the arena. And it is also one of the reasons that this campaign has still not closed the circle of the regional threats. From this picture, one thing is raising clearly. The 13th day was not a day of decline, but a day in which the war opened into a new depth in Tehran, in Hormuz, in the Dahya, and along the fault line inside Iran itself. The big question is not only how many more targets will be attacked, but which side will break first, Tehran's pressure array or the world's patience for the price of the Iranian regime, and it's going to pay until it will give up or collapse. How much is this region going to pay because of Iran? This campaign has long since caused to only be a question of how many missiles. This is no longer the question how many missiles were launched and how many missiles were intercepted. It is now a question of who is capable of commanding, who can coordinate, who can deter the other side, who is controlling the streets, the seas, and also the skies. And if this night in Tehran really makes and marks a new phase in the blow of the regime's repression apparatus, then the next question will no longer only be how much longer the lines of fire will hold, but what will break first, the launch array, freedom of navigation, or the regime's very sense of security inside its own capital. Only God can answer that. But in the meantime, help us spread the truth. That's number one. Help us spread what's happening here, what's happening in Iran, so that the world will know how to pray for the situation. You want to do that? Please hit the subscribe button. Make sure to look for TBN Israel on YouTube so that you never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Also, if you want to see this war through our eyes, behind the scenes in Israel, look for Yair Pinto and Mati Shoshani on social media platforms. And last thing I have to ask of all of you is please pray for the situation. I'm a big believer in prayers. You know why? Because I believe that God is listening to each and every one of us with whatever small or big problem that we have, or whatever thanksgiving that we have to give to God. When I don't know the answers, and definitely, let me tell you this, I have no clue how the situation will end, when, and in what shape. But this is a good place for me to be in, because then I know it's not in my control to fix it. It's above me. At that space, at this location, at this time, this is where I'm 100% dependent on God to help me. So let's do that. Let's trust in Him to have the best plan for our lives, for the Middle East, for the Iranian people, for Israel, for the United States, for Europe. Let's pray. Let's pray for Him to guide our leaders, first of all. Let's pray for Him to protect the Iranian people. Let's pray that God will help protect our children in Israel. My children, the children of the TBN Israel team that need to rush to bomb shelters multiple times a day. Let's pray for His will to be done on earth. Let's pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.